Welcome back, Screamers, to another round of 0 Point reviews. I am Jeff, joined as always by my co-host Kevin. We are covering 1986's House, starring William Catt and a whole great eccentric cast. And we love this movie. We did it once, we're now doing it twice. The first time around, we did it very early on in our 0 Point reviews in a very brief, 15-20 minute video, and we felt like it was time to revisit it and give it way more attention that it truly deserves. Kevin, you like this movie or do you love this movie?
I love this movie. This is one of my first true loves of cinema. House is the bomb. It's a cheese fest that people overlook.
Yeah, this is one of those early horror comedies that really hits the sweet spot and actually nails the landing on it, I feel. Later you would get Tremors, which really is another wonderful horror comedy movie.
Oh, golly. I mean, without 0 pointing already, Tremors is the 5-star. That's where they're like, oh, this one's perfect. We'll just put that right there.
That's the best one because there's a true sense of adventure and action and comedy and drama. It balances a lot of different things. Whereas with this original House movie, they try to balance the backdrop of a writer who went to Vietnam against going into a house he's gotten as an inheritance from, what was his aunt?
Yeah.
And it's haunted. And so it's a bit of a different deal, but it's still set against the backdrop of post-traumatic stress syndrome almost.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that gets overlooked with House. This was originally written to be a more serious movie. There was no comedy to it whatsoever.
Right.
That was added later on. But Steve Miner, I think, had written this with Shane Black and a couple other people as just kind of a writing project to do something more scary, more serious. But considering Shane Black, who did Lethal Weapon just recently and was doing Predator at the time, which I think that was his portion of the project. This had those PTSD tones. It had what can we add from true basic horror? So you've got the haunted house, the ghosts, the creepy noises, and that all worked, but it wasn't going to market and sell well. So they added the comedy to it, and it was like a really happy accident.
Yeah, I think it turned out actually pretty well by doing it like that. And you never know. Sometimes, you hear about all these rewrites and you're like, I don't know. I would be very curious about the original. This is one of those where, no, what they came up with was pretty damn good. I would still be interested to check out original versions and see what could have been. Unfortunately, once they get to House 3, they actually do try and get very serious. Not to get too far along in the franchise of House, but part 3 is way too serious and really doesn't quite fit in the House franchise itself. House 4 brings it back around to the horror comedy, but it's still a bit of a miss because it was really intended for television at that point. It wasn't really all that great.
Oh, yeah. See, even this, it's obviously a movie that can be on TV. But they didn't necessarily film it that way. There was still those horror tones that were quite acceptable for the screen at the time. You wouldn't ordinarily see most of what was on House on TV at the time. Certainly not network TV.
Right, I would completely agree. And even for television, I don't know if they really edited too terribly much because there's not really a whole lot of swearing. The violence is pretty tame in here. It's not very bloody. Other than maybe shoving a grenade up, Big Ben's chest at the end, I don't know what else could really be cut too much. Even the dismembering scenes, but that's probably where they cut anything, if at all.
Yeah.
It's almost like watching an Evil Dead movie, but a little different.
That's actually one of the things that I'd marked down in my notes is this movie even had I'd call it the homage to Evil Dead by having the tool shed scene. I was like, oh, that's cool. Except for everything in the tool shed starts to attack him instead of be useful.
Right. And they end up truly being useful later on when they attack the big female demon.
Yes, which she's always been one of my favorite aspects to this movie. So much so that I barely remember like the weird smiling creatures that you see on the posters.
Yeah.
Never remember where those things come in at until I'm actually watching the movie at the time. And it's like, oh, okay, there. No, I always get derailed, and it's like I always think of the big purple lady.
That's pretty much what I thought. I actually, rewatching it again. I've watched this movie countless times through the years, but then when the other creatures show up, it's like some of these are pretty gnarly looking, and others are just more along the same lines of the creatures we've already seen. But it balances out. It just, whenever I watch this movie, I'm always like, loosely I would throw this in as a loose entry into the Evil Dead franchise because they almost seem like Deadites because all they live to do is like torture or possibly kill, but it never gets to that level of seriousness or real threat of danger because I never really feel like anybody's really going to die because when the aunt dies, she's hanging. Like they convinced her to hang herself. So, and like nobody else dies. His kid Jimmy was basically kidnapped. So nobody else really dies.
No, I don't think so. It was just Aunt Elizabeth, and it shows her here. The grocery boy saw her right as she jumped off the chair. And I don't know. I've always been curious. Did she tells Roger that the house fooled her, but do you think that she killed herself in order to warn Roger about the boy, or I don't know.
I'm not sure because that actual reveal later on in the movie with the painted picture is, why would she need to die for that? She could just call him over and show him the picture. It kind of there's a little bit of things that don't make sense if you try and look at it like that. But, I think the house just got to her and she was trying to find a way to get to Jimmy and she just couldn't figure it out. And the house convinced her to kill herself.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, this picture of Jimmy up on the corner, it's like you would have thought, don't put a rag over that. I mean, I know she wasn't necessarily planning to kill herself that day. But
right.
Something you'd figured she'd pass along. But then we wouldn't have a movie. So,
Hey, at least she was prepared with a shotgun in the house and a few other things like a harpoon gun, which got used twice in the movie, which I thought was completely funny. I love each time. The first time with the real estate agent, and then I can never remember that actor's name. Every time I see him, I'm like, I know that guy, but I never remember it. But then later on, George Wendt uses it, and it's completely funny each time.
Oh, golly, I have it right here, except for there's something right in front of my window. Michael Ensign? Yes, Michael Ensign.
Yep.
Also the hotel manager from the Sedgwick and Ghostbusters.
Thank you. That's where I always know him from, and I never remember.
Yeah, $5,000. He had no idea it'd be so expensive.
I won't pay. I'm going to go sell houses in California. Maybe this is his loose sequel to Ghostbusters.
And he has no oopsie doodle, real remorse for accidentally shooting Roger here with this with this harpoon.
He was more amazed, oh, it still works. Cool. All right, and back to trying to sell the house.
Yeah, and if it was me, I don't know that I could actually get away with not shooting my pants at that moment. So
right,
yeah. But I mean, it had little moments like that, and then with the harpoon didn't come in so much useful for it, but the shotgun, of course, did. The swordfish, that was a chef's kiss for this movie.
Give me that fillet fish. Give me that fish. Ah! That's what I think of every time I see that, ever since that McDonald's commercial came out years ago.
What? Give me that fish. Oh, God. Is that for
That's my 0 point for this episode.
Is that for the fillet of fish?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet Christmas. I had it. I even had a name for it. Here it is. This thing was so creepy, and I wanted to get more shots of it. But this was definitely an homage to the deer in Evil Dead 2.
In the cabin. Yeah.
where it starts moving around and laughing, and you can see like tears in this thing's eye as it's looking at Roger after he shoots it. And it's so goddamn creepy. Like, that was one of the scariest parts of the movie. Like, you don't think of this movie as scary necessarily, but there are parts where you're like, ooh, that's chilling.
Especially if you've never seen it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've seen it as many times as probably Kevin and I have, you have a familiarity with this movie that you're like, I know what's coming next, and you get all excited. And if you're sitting with somebody who's never seen it before, you're probably sitting there like, yeah, this one's gonna get them, or this one's gonna make them laugh and pee their pants, and my God, I'm gonna have to clean up a mess after this.
Get the carpet shampooer. No, I mean, yeah. This is one of those movies where you kind of like want to set up a hidden video camera to like record somebody's reaction, because it has good moments of like truly shitting your pants. I mean, it's like I showed with the harpoon. That's not the only moment. That's just the first moment where you like something makes Roger like freak out horribly.
But it also ends up building to the point where he has this sense of relief once he gets the demon in purple dead, and they start playing the that one peppy song. I forgot what it. You're no good. You're no good, baby. You're no good. And you feel that pride in him, like, yeah, that's right. I'm not crazy, and I'm gonna fuck shit up, yo. And he's just got he exudes confidence, and that's when they introduce the hot blonde in the movie, not his wife, Sandy.
Yeah, that was Tanya.
Tanya. Mm-hmm.
Who?
Tanya.
That. She had that great line of knows when a man needs to work and knowing when a man wants to play. And then she like starts off with that sexy line when she opens the door to him like randomly.
Yep.
And says, I know you want to play, and like brings her son right in there. And you're like, why? No. It almost derails the movie. It doesn't, of course, but
it somehow fits. But at the same time, it's like, bitch, why are you dropping off your kid with a fucking neighbor you just met like 3 hours earlier? Stranger danger? What the fuck?
Yeah, that you were like swimming in his pool. You know that there was somebody else already living there, and you went into the pool without asking. That's called a crime in some cultures. Trespassing.
Yeah, he didn't seem to mind too much because as he was watching her leave, so.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
We weren't mind watching her leave either in that swimsuit. Cheeky, I'll say.
You'd figure I'd have a whole bunch of pictures of that, but I didn't. Like, none of them made the grade.
YouTube might smack us for that.
No, I've shown worse.
I'm kidding.
But speaking of the big purple she-devil monster, it begs to differ a question: how would you deal with certain situations with the monster like that? Like, at first it's your wife, and then it's this like grotesque, disgusting succubus of a demon.
Then you shoot her, and she turns back into your wife, who looks like you just shot your wife.
Oh yeah, like he blasted her out the fucking door, like through 2 sets of doors. It was like applesauce, bitch. But then when he goes to look, like you said, yeah, he sees his wife.
Oh God, what have I done? My poor wife. She was just possessed by a devil. I love how her leg is like pushed off to the side like that in that scene. It's like, who falls like that? She didn't.
I had not caught that.
They probably told her, let's make it look like it's really uncomfortable for you, and then you have to stay still. Don't move. Way to go, Steve.
Way to go, Steve. But okay, so if you had 2 choices to deal with this monster, as you would right here, would you go with having sex with it, or just letting her pull the goddamn trigger?
I'll go with plan C. Run.
I don't know. Like, could it be dark? Little bag over the head.
Wow, Kevin, we know what floats your boat. A whole lot of purple.
I do like purple, but that's because of the anyway. And then going back to the scene that you were talking about where the tools come into play and kill this thing, like she was just amazing looking. And did they have like balloon sounds when it cut the head off and she fell?
It certainly seemed like it.
I don't know if I'm thinking that it did or if I'm thinking of Evil Dead when he kills Henrietta.
I don't know. Maybe it was more of a sheer cut. Insert Bruce the Barber Beefcake. Shing!
I was already watching wrestling too. I was trying to text you. I'm like, dude, they bleeped out ass on Peacock. Lame.
Everything got PG-fied on Peacock and WWE Network that way. If you want to watch originally, you almost have to get like a VPN and watch it through a tree's portal. Where they actually still have the WWE app.
Fortunately, I'm a huge physical media collector, especially with them. Except for
just do not have DVDs, and just pull them out. It's uncensored.
I need to get the Roddy Piper one.
I like that one. That's a good one.
They took that off the network, like right after the network came out. Like I want to say the last time I started watching it was the night before Hunter was born, 8 years ago at this point.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and I haven't seen it on disc anytime else after that. But it was a dope ass documentary.
Imagine if Roddy had cameoed in this freaking movie.
He was amazing in everything he did.
Well, Hell Comes to Frogtown's not really all that great, but
well,
They Live is awesome though.
What's that? Oh, They Live?
Awesome.
Yes. It's a cult film. It's not a choice. It's not cheesy. It's just a rad fucking movie.
Hey, stay tuned for November, yo. We're going to be doing John Carpenter month in November, and we have a wide selection to choose from. So if you want to vote on that, put that comment below.
Scream Factor, that means I'm sending you money.
Yeah, there goes the money.
There it goes. My friends shout, I could already see them going, we'll just put that on his tab.
Add it to the tab. He'll work it off eventually.
Eventually. Oh, but here's the lady bringing the fucking kid over. I zero-pointed bad. I'm sorry. And
Robert, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think the kid's name's Robert. I wanted to say Roger, but that's his name. So it's Robert.
And the only reason why I was like less tolerant or more tolerant of this kid is because he's holding a He-Man toy right there. He had Skeletor before, and now he's got Buzz Off. And that, I'm a sucker for He-Man, so I wasn't going to complain. But it was really weird, like the first time having him over, and he's chasing the kid around, with the hand on his back.
Right.
And the mom's totally cool with him being in the bathroom with the kid. The kid's crying.
Then she's just standing like 20 feet from the door waiting for them to come out. And she's like, oh, everything's fine. Okay, thank you for making sure he went potty and everything. It's like, lady, if that doesn't tell you, maybe I should have found a real babysitter. Like, kinda. I don't know what to talk about dense and dumb. Like, did you even catch what she was supposed to be going out for? Was like a date with somebody else, or was it just some?
That's certainly what it seemed like. Because it looks like a dinner dress to me. And
she was out to get a hookup going on, I guess.
New daddy,
and not him. And he wasn't even wearing a wedding ring.
No, but that is where the little creepy things with the big ass smiles come in.
Yep.
And of course, this is where I would assume Krampus got their pulling up the chimney scene. And I never really kind of, again, knew what these things were. So I asked the question, what are these things? And the best that I can come up with is scary as fuck. Because they were practical. They looked real. They looked wet. That was the creepiest fucking thing. But then he gets the boy back. The mom's still not done he lets the boy sleep on the couch while he's writing, and he has this flashback to Vietnam as he's writing, and then he goes to check on the boy, and he's fucking gone.
Poof.
And you're like,
poof.
Yeah, it's official. Roger cannot take care of anything.
He's now officially lost 2 kids in the span of this movie. And to his credit, he did get them both back. However, that's 2 lost kids. On his watch. His own son was not even like 50 feet away from him while he was working on whatever. And then he turns his head and his kid's gone. And then, he turns his head he's in the same room, not even 20 feet away from Robert. He goes to his computer. Oh, I'm just going to write a page or 2. Poof, kid's gone. Dude, maybe you should pay attention to your kid. Maybe that's an underlying theme of daddy issues in this movie. I tease. But you notice these things after so many viewings. It's like, man, I could start poking holes through a lot of this.
Actually, speaking of that, I didn't think I was going to. I found something in this flick that I'd never caught before, and that's in this scene where the little boy's watching TV, and he's watching there's
soap opera with Sandy in it, yeah.
Yeah, and she says, "My sister was an only child, and you abused her. I can never forgive you for that."
That was so freaking dumb. Boy, they did a great job, like knocking on soaps.
And her face was so goddamn serious and shit.
That's what soap operas were back then. It's like, can you believe the shit they're saying? And they mean it too. Marlene is possessed by the devil.
But God bless this movie. It's got some really dumb sounding aspects, but none of it comes off as stupid. It's all very quite enjoyable.
And oftentimes tongue in cheek. It's fun. And when it has the somber, more dramatic moments, they really don't feel all that out of place. Like the one I remember the most is his book signing at the beginning of the movie. And he's signing autographs and he's dealing with all of his fans. Some are nuts, some are big Sandy fans of his ex-wife. And he's just sitting there like, I can't wait to write my memoirs of Vietnam so I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Well, that was supposed to be one of the original subplots, is he's failing as a horror author because he doesn't want his next book to be a horror book. He wants to get his processing of PTSD out through novelization. Right. And nobody wants that. Like, he wants to help better himself and no one cares. Like, they don't, like, fuck you, we're paying for this.
Yep.
So, I mean, you get that. But one of those fans, God bless her, is Mindy Sterling.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
And she is just the most delightful character actor ever. I love her so much. She comes to, gosh, I want to say it's an Ashland or Medford Comic Con every once in a while. Not for the last year or so because of COVID, I think. But
okay,
going to meet her is definitely on my to-do list. She's fun.
There's quite a few I'd like to meet, especially from like the cast of this movie or even in the second movie, the second story.
Yes. Can't 0-Point on that because I watched it yesterday. Haven't worked on it yet, but I have. But I will fucking go off on a tangent because I'm going to have, say it now, I want to put a poll together to ask what people preferred, the first or the second story. And I'm going to try to figure out this week which I liked better. And then, yeah, because I mean, I really
love both of them. It's going to be hard. And I will pick one next week as well.
Yeah. To me, it's like basically telling like, which one of my kids do I want to let live? Like the other one, nah, all right, no.
I know which one you get rid of. We don't have to get into that now.
Harley
just
watches
say the
monster movies
Antichrist
with me. She knows what she did. Hunter's like, it's not me.
Puppies love chocolate. That's all I'm gonna say.
God. Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of dogs, the dog in this movie ran away with a hand. At least the hand returned. The dog never came back.
That's true. That's true. And
Something I noticed for like one of the first, I think for the first time, honestly.
I wonder if, if the hand ate the dog or strangled it somewhere.
Or just got free from the dog and got on the kid. Because the dog only made it to the end of the driveway hooked, and then all of a sudden Tanya's showing up with Robert within like a minute.
Oh, that's true. That's
It's like, hey, I gotta get back to the house. It's like Thing had like a twisted third cousin, you know?
A twisted third cousin with pigment and glandular issues.
A little more decomposed.
Decomposited. But that thing really was fun looking, though. Like,
oh yeah.
Was it silly? Sure, of course, because it was all big and poofy, but it was scary.
Right.
It was scary. It had gnarly teeth. The eyes were very realistic looking, the way that they made those move around and shit. And the shrill voice. If you were a child, this could be something that could bother you. Like my girls, probably not. My son, maybe. But not me at their age. Like, I ate this shit up. This was, what, was this an HBO baby that was on all the time, or Cinemax?
I want to say HBO, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, I obviously didn't catch this in the theater, and it was...
I didn't. This was Video Store for me.
It was not for me. It was a movie that I definitely wanted to see in the video store because I loved the art so much.
Right.
Yeah,
I want to say all of them I've seen on home video. The fourth one I actually remember seeing on TV, so it was like TBS or TNT, one of the two. It's basically a Warner Brothers TNT TBS film. So,
was Ernest Borgnine in it?
No. But William Cat returns in that one. And yes, he is Roger again. However, everything has changed about him.
Oh.
His career, he's dead, technically. I'm not a fan of the story parts of part 4. I really, it's more in line with the first 2 movies, but it's still not quite right. I didn't really dig that much. It's like when they took Critters and they did the 4th one. It's like, well, whoa, slow your roll. We don't need one like this.
I don't think I've ever seen the 4th one. Like, after part 3, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, the horror show part 3 is kind of... It's not a house movie. It's just not. And I'll leave it at that.
I liked that it had Charlie.
It had Lance in it.
Oh, that's true. It did, didn't it?
Yep. Lance Henriksen.
But no Brad, so I was like,
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't care for it as much.
No. The love is definitely for the first 2. And like when you get around to looking at, like, you know, we've talked about a lot of the creatures, but we haven't really talked about Big Ben a whole lot. And unfortunately, his costume's a way bit bigger than Richard Mall is. And it feels a little odd at times. It's very clear, like it's a foam suit, plastic suit, whatever. And sometimes you see the mouth behind the teeth kind of talking. It's just a product of its time. I still like the look, but I don't find it very scary. Whereas, just as a quick comparison to part 2, when you get to the Western cowboy skeleton outfit designs, those are fantastic by comparison. It's like they took what they learned from the first one and they're like, okay, we know how to do this now. And in part 2, they nail it.
Without getting too far ahead, I want to say the actor had more mobility with the mouth. I mean, despite being able to see, there was more mobility in the face for Big Ben, I think, than there was for Slim.
Yeah.
But not for Gramps. Gramps looked fucking amazing.
Exactly.
And Royal Dano, and I'll get into it, of course, next week. Royal Dano let out so much emotion in his character with just his eyes and his voice, because
Exactly.
the fucking mustache was so big you don't even get to see his mouth moving. But god damn, do you feel it when Gramps starts crying and stuff when he's like, and he's looking at his hands that are rotten and decomposed, kind of like Big Ben's. I'm 170-year-old Bart. Like,
Well, it reminds me of like what it ultimately ends up happening. Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. There's a lot of, I want to say, there's some homages here to House, because they, with the skeleton and ghost effects that they have in that, it almost feels like, hey, I liked House. Let's do something funny with a jaw clicking into place with the judge.
I like them when they move. Just sit there.
And they don't move.
That's right.
Him and the Mummy.
Which is funny because, speaking of which, and again, one of those things I didn't get is Gramps when they dig him up. Wait, that's never. You fucking derailed me next week. He's mummified when they dig him up. Like, if you look under his clothes, he's wrapped up and mummified.
Yep, pretty much.
0-pointed on my own. That's why I said I didn't want to talk about House 2 yet.
Yep.
But I've made some really neat shit for it. Just saying.
Can't wait.
Yeah, actually, none of it's really dirty, so you're gonna enjoy it.
Well, did you also enjoy like the music out of this? Because I never really picked up that it was a Harry Manfredi.
Yes. And so one of the things that I wanted to point out about that is Insidious. This is not a 0-point. This is going somewhere. Insidious, you always think of as like kind of a ripoff of Poltergeist, because it's got, the kid inside the television, the parents got to go get it, whatever. It is that, but you also think to yourself, Insidious is also just original enough to be entertaining, despite being a very profane ripoff of Poltergeist in a way. And it is because it's blended with House. There's most certainly elements from House that go often to see in a movie like Insidious.
Yeah. I haven't seen really the Insidious movie, so I wouldn't know that.
The first 4 are really good.
There's more than 4?
Part 5 just came out in the theaters. I think it's called The Red Door.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that one then.
Yeah. I don't know how good it is, but the first 4 movies are all really good.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So now I'm going to 0-point, and I don't care. Once the horror films got into the 2000s, they all started going back to the PG-13 type movies.
Right.
And that's okay, because some of them were actually really good for not being R-rated. Insidious is an extreme example of that. It's very creepy. It has a lot of scary horror elements to it, with that music that is from this. It's got that Henry Manfredini, like several different violins screeching all at the same time and kind of trail off. And it's like a character in a suspense film unto itself. Is the music. And he does that in everything. He did that, of course, in Friday the 13th. Right. He did that in this. And obviously, I don't think he did Insidious, of course. But no, it does have the fiddles and the violins playing all really, really fast, like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, I was a lot more appreciative of the music this time around than I have been before, because I'm always trying to look for something new when we go to do our reviews, and something I just happened to pick up this time. I'm like, I knew he scored it, but I never really attentively listened to it. And this time I did, and I'm like, this is really good. It really brings a nice character to the movie, and it helps with the atmosphere a lot.
Yeah. And what I like about it the most is it doesn't have any peppy, upbeat moments. Not even when the little boy is there. Like, when it's peppy and upbeat, it's Linda Ronstadt, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's when they play the actual soundtracks. So
yeah. Otherwise, yeah, no, this is a very on edge type movie. Sound wise.
I wish I could have seen this one in the theaters. I would have loved it.
I think I would have too. I don't think my parents really dug this at all. Like, I think the comedy aspect made my dad think it was stupid, so it was never rented. I had to catch it if I was at an aunt's that had cable, or my friends that had cable, something like that. But I coveted watching it every time I got a chance.
Yeah, every time I went to the video store, this was always like, if I was in remotely the mood to watch it, I would grab this one every time.
The hand, it's the box art for it.
Give him a hand, everybody.
It looks amazing.
Like, I love the poster. I should really get that in some way.
This one, and then the second one with the key going into the lock.
Right.
Oh, it's so good. There's worms coming out of the fucking hand. Like, how can you not want to see what that is? It's so cool looking.
And unlike other movie posters that had super cool art and looked really cool, say like Chopping Mall, nothing like that featured into the actual movie at all. This actually features into the movie. So it feels like a key piece of art. And I loved when movie posters were like stunningly beautiful like this. And they don't really make them like that. It's all Photoshop now or whatever they use. Now they're going to be AI generated movie posters, and like you look at the commissioned art that's behind us on the background, and that's stunning too. And we get that on maybe physical media. We don't get that on movie posters these days. It's a little sad.
No, this is generally something that's commissioned by the disc company that's putting it out. The actual studios don't do anything like this.
No, it's usually the boutique labels or, sub labels.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know what the technical term for that was, but it's true. You don't, and it's nice seeing stuff like this. It's nice being able to see a movie and be inspired to wonder what it is from the box art.
Right.
Like everything's pretty in your face. It's all about design now. It's like, can you make the design of the movie or the cover of it look nice, as opposed to.
You make me want to go grab my box set from over there, so I could show you what that looks like.
It's hard to explain. Like, I'm more intrigued by something, and I'll be wanting to salivate to know what it is with a little bit more intrigue than I am just by looking at something that's like more clever or artistically designed. I don't know.
That's true. Well, if you want to keep talking for a minute, I can go grab that real quick.
Keep talking for a minute. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn my camera off. I'll be back in one moment. But you keep talking, y'all. I ain't editing this shit.
He's not editing this shit. Okay, so one of the things that and he turns himself off. One of the things that they utilize in this flick, and I call it Ghost World, is it's like a magic show. He opens up his medicine chest, and there's all the medicine there. And he closes the mirror and throws a fucking chair through it, or a wastebasket, and it goes into this black hole. And it leaves you to wonder what it is or what's back there, how deep it is. And I just call it Ghost World because they will utilize sets with just black backdrops everywhere with props in between. And it's lit with smoke sometimes, but it's always at night, but it's even eerier than that because it's an unnatural black. And they utilize it in both flicks, and I really dig it.
Yeah, I can see that.
You didn't even hear what the fuck I said.
Doesn't matter. I got. Welcome to Zero.Point Review. I should really get like some Bluetooth earbuds so I can run around and do other things and get off the headset. But I have that Arrow box set from a few years ago, which is all region free. They ultimately discovered later on that 2 of the releases should have been region locked, and they then corrected that. However, if you're into home video, there's a German release coming out sometime soon, and it's all 4K. 4K is region free, except for the 0.01% that gets locked by accident. However, this is really cool box art.
Ooh. And that's the one that has okay, yeah.
All 4.
I saw that online last night.
Everything's in English. And then it's got a book to go with everything. But you got, let's see, House 4.
Ooh.
House 3. Because they actually gave it the House 3 title.
Ah.
Of course. Awesome House 2.
Turning that key. And the classic ding dong, you're dead.
Love it. And then, of course, the book, which has the art.
Cool.
And it's an actual book. There's art throughout it and everything. So.
Oh wow. That's some neat effort put into that box set.
Yeah, the 4K set that's coming out of Germany looks really cool, but it's also expensive. I don't know if I really want to pop for that. I'm thinking about it. I'm kind of holding out to see if like Arrow puts out like another box set of that. And I might part with that and then upgrade to 4K. We will see.
Cool. I would think this movie would be really pretty in 4K.
I think so.
It's a bit grainy when you watch it on DVD. It's not so bad. I watched it on Prime, I think, right now.
Oh, okay.
And it looked okay. It's a hell of a lot better than watching it on VHS, but
I'll say, unless you had like an older TV and a VCR hooked up and you watched it that way. But I love the Blu-ray. I got the DVDs back on my shelf too. Only of the first 2 though.
There's a fly about to walk right across my camera lens. Thank you. Thank you for not. Fuck him. Oh. Stupid fly. Anyway, speaking of the house, let's see here. I didn't bring a picture of it. Oh, man, I had one all nicely made up that said if you lived here, you'd be dead by now.
Come on, Slide Master.
I know. I hit upload all. Can't help it if I added some shit after the fact.
Yeah, you can. I'm kidding.
I don't think I lost or missed anything that was actually important.
No.
But as we're getting towards the end, we've gotten a Big Ben. We haven't talked about the one fucked up monster. Is this horror of an abomination that barrels out of the
No, that's what I'm talking about as far as gnarly. And nobody who's seen this, if you haven't seen this movie before, you see all the goofy things before this, you get that and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, when this pops out of the fucking closet, this is like a really dope jump scare. And it's not a jump scare that's kind of like, oh, it's been 10 minutes, we need to make the audience jump.
Right.
It's like, it really makes you shit your pants for and with Roger. Like, the thing's terrifying looking. This thing was practical effect. None of it was CG. It was 18 feet long and took 15 people to operate. Just the little motion that it came out of the fucking door here. It was beautiful looking. And it looks here like it's in blurred motion, but it's not. If you look closely, all that blurriness on the side of its head are other faces. And the fingers.
I saw the one. Yeah, I didn't see the other ones until now.
Yeah, going all down the neck. And it kind of looks like a penis too. But it's all faces going down the neck and around the head. They're all other faces. And what they are is they're all people who had been killed in Vietnam, either American soldiers or Vietnamese soldiers. Right. And the fingers were knives and bullets. And it's like, oh, neato. That's kind of neat. And again, I think that's one of those dark tones or undertones that got left in the movie, but didn't really like get
Didn't really
spelled
land
out.
the punch that they were trying to hit.
Yeah, like it was there and you could tell it was something special, but it wasn't as big as it was intended to be initially.
Right. Now, if there was like a line like, I private stash and major, bend or whatever, like if he was calling out names like he recognized the faces and being horrified by that, that might have worked, but they didn't really, there wasn't enough time. This movie clocked in at like an hour and 30 minutes or hour and 28 minutes. There was really no time for that kind of exposition.
No, there really wasn't. And what this movie kind of is, and I don't begrudge it for it because it's just like one of my other favorite movies, UHF, is it both house movies are like a series of sketches, like one after the next, where the house owner is finding himself in another scenario, one shit scenario after another, like he's going through different rooms in the house. That's more along the lines of part two, but it is still the same for Roger, with like Roger had going through the purple monster, the tools, which eventually collide with one another, and
Right.
then the Vietnam part got pulled in with the kid. Those two things were not initially together, and Shane Black told Steve Miner, well, let's try to bring the kid into the whole Vietnam thing. And that's where they came up with Big Ben, who kidnaps him and brings him into the ghost world of old Vietnam.
Right.
It's this close to being racist.
Just a little.
Just a little. Like, there was there's a lot of racism in this movie. There was.
A lot of movies of the 80s had a little bit like that. Like, you want to talk about this one, you also have to talk about like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes. Our culture has never been necessarily kind to the Asian culture for whatever stupid reason. This, again, we were just post-Vietnam too, so the whole calling Viet Cong soldiers Charlie at the same time was not necessarily a slur at that point. That was just socially accepted.
Right.
A norm. Doesn't make it right, but that's what it was at the time.
Yep.
We're not trying to be racist. That's really what I'm getting at.
So
we're not trying to be, it just naturally happens that way.
Yep. It's that privilege, yo.
But going along towards the end, there's this great moment here where Big Ben grabs Jimmy, the little boy, and he holds him up in the air to show Roger, basically, I got your kid, don't move. And he's basically grabbing the boy by his shorts. I never caught that before.
Wedgie time.
And the look on his face, like it's so ouch that it looks like it's a rubber doll, but it's not. They've got him by his goddamn chonies and wedged up.
Yeah.
That is just damn horrible. And before I forget, because this is going to be a running trend in the next several weeks, I'm sure. Another movie that still has better blue screen than Deep Rising. Another movie. You see, and this is not the finale even yet either. You see Big Ben fall off the edge of the cliff out the back of the house, all the way down to the rocks, and like the Big Ben's head pops off of the body when it hits the rocks and separates. It was so cool and gross at the same time.
And then he shows up like 20 seconds later.
Yeah, when they open the door, it's like, fuck. But that was really dope. Really dope.
Yeah, that was actually a fun final battle, I felt. Roger got his strength back. He's not afraid anymore. He's got his kid back. He's like, you know what? I'm not afraid of you. And then all of a sudden, like, the weakness started showing up for Ben. Like, he couldn't do nothing. It's all imagination at that point. He's like, yep, you're dosed. Here's a grenade up your gut.
And that was awesome because, like, there's certain points of the movie where you see Big Ben you can see his rib cage, of course, exposed, but underneath that is organs, and you can see the stomach, you can see the kidneys and a bit of the lungs. And Roger just sticks his hand all up in that shit, like with no fear whatsoever. Like, let's get that as high as we can up there.
Right. It's like, I don't want you getting this out in the next few seconds.
And poor Ben's trying to fucking get it out of his rib cage.
Richard Mole was so good as Big Ben.
Yeah, like he is truly a gem.
He went boom.
Big Bang! And that, of course, was the end. But hey, go away. Okay.
You go away.
I tried.
Keep coming back, just like Ben.
I told you, man, I had a whole day to myself today to just hang out with the dog and watch 80s movies. It was perfect.
Glorious.
Hells yeah. The dog was kind of like, why is he singing with that big-haired man with two different colored eyes?
Oh, well.
Because he reminds me of the babe.
There you go. Now, what did you think of the ending of this? Do you feel like he got back together with Sandy since he found the son?
Probably. I'd like to hope so. I'm
Right.
sure in part 4 it says not, but a lot of couples statistically do split apart when there's a passing of a child or if there's a kidnapping or anything like that.
Right.
People cope differently, and when that happens, they kind of stray off to self-mend and they go in different directions. It's really shitty.
Right.
And the fact that she even came back was interesting, especially considering Harold was the one that called her and was like, oh, hey, yeah, it's Harold. Like, you should know who that is.
That was so funny. George.Point was so good. Oh, good. Every time I think about him, I'm like, he was too perfect for this movie. Trying to play this. Oh, he was just so funny.
I love Harold.
Yep.
He's the nosiest motherfucker on earth, and the best way I could describe him, 80s babies, is he's the original Mrs. Ochmonic, like always peeking through the window and shit.
Hey, he wants to go where everybody knows your name.
It's true. And did you catch his room, or basically the living room, was him lying on the sofa half of the time and looking at one of those old portable transistor black and white TVs.
Yep.
And it's like, oh God, poor guy.
No wonder why I wanted to go over to Rogers. He had color TV.
And cable.
And cable, damn it. To watch those wonderful soap operas.
That's right.
He was such a big fan of Sandy.
But I did like the ending.
Yeah.
Initially, he was supposed to fight some other type of monster in the pool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Shane Black had said, no, let's merge it with the whole Vietnam thing.
Yeah.
So rather than fighting a monster in the pool in Ghost World, he goes through the mirror, of course, falls into water, and comes up from the pool.
That was actually pretty clever, I thought.
This movie is a modern miracle of editing. It was so easy and clever the way that they made tricks happen in this movie.
Yeah.
And with the second one as well, with again, the one moment you've got the medicine chest with the medicine full, next moment you throw a mirror through it and there's a big black hole, nothing there. Right. Really simple tricks, but it works through the power of editing and Foley sounds.
Imagine what you can do if you were to do this in a movie today with the kind of money you have at your disposal to do practical effects. Just saying, not all these CGI fests would be swinging and missing.
Oh God, man, I would hate to see a movie like this have any sort of CGI whatsoever.
Any movie trying to do what House did these days would not do any CGI. Period. They try to do it all practical. That's the only way to do it. If you're going to reboot this, you got to be all practical. You do any CGI, you've already missed the point of this movie and franchise.
Unless it's something like we just saw recently on Swamp Thing, where it's a mixture of the two between CG and practical effect. Where
then your story's got to be real good, to make up for that.
Hopefully.
And if it's not, and it's just mid, You're missing the point on these.
We want the rubber monsters back. God damn it.
We do.
But it did end well. He comes out of the house after blowing up Big Ben. The liquor in the house is what really destroys the house, unfortunately. Like a broken brandy decanter. And then he's got this stoic moment of staring at Sandy with Jimmy in his arms, and the movie just rolls to credits. And you're like, well, hey, that's all the closure I need.
Hey, he walks out of that house like a boss, like, yeah, I burned this bitch up, got my kid back, and there's my woman. We're going to go off and have some hot sex. We're going to lose the kid like 20 minutes later because nobody's paying attention to the kid again.
Roger's not paying attention to shit through half of this fucking movie.
It's clear. He's got a little attention problem. It's like, dude, focus, please.
Every time somebody comes to talk to him, whether it be like the cops, who are an amazing fucking cameo. We've got
Steve Williams.
Yeah, X and Bubba themselves, the two great cops. They're trying to investigate and talk to him, and he's barely paying attention because he's looking at the fucking shotgun shells on the ground, or the purple demon lady thing, whatever the fuck she was, trying to get out of the closet.
Yeah,
it was cool, but he loses two kids, two women, sort of. But again, we're gonna think Sandy stays with him towards the end.
Yep. Well, if you could say one thing about Roger, he shoots but never scores.
And did you catch the post-credit scene?
I didn't watch all the way through this time. Once I got to the credits, I'm like, I'm good.
So basically, like, everything ends really nicely, and it sums up this way: they lived happily ever after until Roger received a fine from the neighborhood HOA for all the holes he put in his lawn.
Yeah. Goddamn, dude. Horrible burying job. You don't leave like the mounds of dirt. You should flatten that out.
But you know what, though?
You know, for a military guy, he should have known how to properly bury that stuff. Just saying. Boot camp would have busted his ass for that.
Kind of, yeah. But he was so fucking proud of himself for like getting it all spread apart. And
he had that wonderful look like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like totally like pleased with himself.
Yeah.
And the love that he had for beating the shit out of that demon when Tanya turns him around kills me.
He started whacking her on he was whacking that bag for all it was worth. It's like, good. At least he wasn't trying to undersell it. He's like, William Cott is a great actor, and I loved what he did with this. It was just fantastic. When it was time for him to turn it on, he turned it on. So,
yes, in both the funny arena, the scary arena, and the very touching emotional arena.
Yeah,
you believed he was a veteran. You believed he was an author. You believed he was a parent separated from his child.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wish he had gotten a better career out of House, but he's had a good career. But I think he could have been a bigger name because he was like friends with Robert Englund. He was friends with like a lot of the horror names out there, and like he got this. I'm like, they had stuck with him for like a House 3 and then a Real House 4. That's a nice franchise for somebody.
Yeah, because I mean it could all be connected in certain ways.
Right. Like he could show up as a cameo in part 3 and then have a full House 4 to cap it off if you wanted to. And then, you have Ari Gross come back from part 2 and, emerges in that way, shape, or form. Doesn't have to be all nice and neat. It could just be, fun.
Well, like Gramps explains in the second one, some houses are like temples.
Right.
This house is very much the same. Like the house is like a hot wire entity that Big Ben has taken advantage of.
Right.
And there's different places all around like that I'm sure, yeah, you could form like an anthology series of movies in a way. that all have a central character that go from one to the next to the next.
This seemed to be the Cheers cast. Seemed to be the recurring theme through some of these, other than the house itself being a character. But
I would have loved to seen Woody Harrelson or Rhea Perlman show up.
I know, right? That would have been great.
That would have been dope. I love them. Actually, I think they were the only two characters from. No, I'm sorry.
There was a lot more characters, but
I would say there's a lot more characters that I liked. It's like, okay, I did like Frasier. Of course, I did like Cliff and Norm. And then that's about it. Like, pretty much Sam I didn't like. And
he was okay.
Kirstie Alley I didn't like. The old guy, not so much. But again, I only watched Cheers just to get through it to get to Night Court.
Yeah, right. That's what I did too.
That was my jam.
Cheers, I think, was more for the older crowd than my age range.
Yeah. I knew more about crime at that age than I did about drinking and socializing.
Yeah. So if you wanted your Night Court Cheers crossover in a horror movie, this is as close as you ever got.
Oh, but you know what? Sticking with it between Cliff and Norm, that was so great, though. It really was. Like,
yes,
George Wendt does such a fantastic job in this, and he's not playing Norm. He's playing a nosy neighbor that means well.
Right.
And
well, it was clear he liked Roger. He was legitimately concerned about him.
Yeah, like he had his book tattered and torn in his back pocket, like randomly.
Right.
Without cue that Roger had moved next door. So, I mean, yeah, most certainly he was a fan of both. Seemed like more of a fan of Rogers than he was Sandy's, though.
As compared to earlier in the movie at the book signing. I love Sandy. I love Sandy.
Are you guys still married? You talk to her?
Can you say hi to her for me? It's like, oh my God, bitch, shut up.
Yeah, thanks for that. Go on, lady, go on.
It's like, I can't wait to get out of here. Poor guy.
Yeah, I've seen people at signings be like that, like want to get up and out as fast as possible.
Next.
Yeah, like, and bless them, I've seen some people that it's like are so professional they'll try to sit through as much shit as they possibly can just to make sure everyone gets a good experience.
Like Bruce.
Yes. And Lordy, some of the people that come up to him, they're just crazy as hell.
Yep.
When I met Bruce, there was people like that all around. You're just kind of like, oh, fuck. That's why I didn't say anything to him. It's like, I don't want to be like them.
I've heard William's pretty good with fans, too.
He was actually super duper nice. He just pretended not to be himself.
That's the best acting gig in the world. Try not to be yourself.
It kind of was. It kind of was. And then I want to say that the guy that managed that pot shop got fired for getting his getting the information, I think, for like where he lived. I heard something to that effect. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but that's very illegal. You can't do that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, 0-Point review.
Well, Kevin, got any final thoughts before I ask you what you would score this thing?
Oh, golly. You know what? House is a perfect 5 for me. I really love this flick. There's no nudity. There doesn't necessarily need to be any, but it has scares. It has every single element that needs to be in a horror film to make it scary. Yeah. And it has just enough humor in it to be relatable, funny, and lighthearted, but not overshadowing the horror. And House, both two movies, the first two, are stellar.
Awesome. I would also give this a 5 out of 5. It's one of my favorite horror comedy movies out there, and I've enjoyed this one since I first saw it. It never gets old for me. I feel very strongly about the second one as well. Non-spoiler alert on that one. Love it. So we'll get into that next week, but love Richard Mall, love George Wendt, love William Katt. The movie is just It's such a joy to watch. I can watch it just about anytime. If I see it on TV, I stop what I'm doing and I watch the movie. If I get a reason to pull it out of the collection and watch it for a review, happy to do it. Watched it twice. I cannot go wrong with the House franchise. Now maybe I want to go buy that set. God damn it. Woohoo! 5 out of 5, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in to 0 Point Reviews as we covered 1986 House, produced by Sean Cunningham, directed by Steve Miner. Awesome time. Loved it. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell notification down below. We're working towards 200 subscribers. Help us get there, and maybe we'll do a giveaway. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at SunsAndShadowsCast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.